30 years into the future, humanity faced a worldwide supernatural phenomenon called summoning syndrome, causing thousands of young men and women to disappear into parallel universes after being summoned. As time went by, only a handful returned to Earth, successfully retaining the extraordinary skills and fighting techniques procured in the parallel universes. To study these special cases, a school called Babel was founded, where students were trained to fight against otherworldly threats. Among them was Akatsuki, a proclaimed rogue hero who, after defeating the Dark Lord in another world, returned to Earth. But upon his arrival, he brings back the daughter of the defeated Dark Lord, Mu. At first, the two of them had their differences but eventually decided to work together. The next day, some people from Babel came to pick up Akatsuki and Mu. On their way, he made up a story of Mu being his long-lost sister whom he found recently in a parallel universe, Isekai'd. This whole journey to Earth and now a fake story was too much for Mu, so she began freaking out, causing a little problem. Once calm, Akatsuki assured her that he will always take care of her. When they arrived at the school, Mu was immediately taken to an examination hall, where, after performing a series of tests, she was granted the right to enroll in Babel. However, there was a catch. They both had to pass an entrance exam by defeating one of the instructors, so they headed towards an arena. As the instructor rushed to attack her, Mu cast an attack spell along with a protection barrier, sending the instructor flying towards the wall. This shocked the instructor, who wondered how a normal student like her was able to cast multiple spells simultaneously. On the other side, members of the student council learned about the prophecy of Akatsuki becoming an overlord and destroying the world in the near future. Meanwhile, back at the arena, after beating the instructor, when Akatsuki and Mu were about to leave, a guy with white hair came forward. He introduced himself as Hikami, the president of the student council, and to see Akatsuki's fighting capabilities, he challenged him to a duel. Being overconfident, Akatsuki accepted the challenge. But before he knew it, Hikami attacked Mu with an ice spell, making Akatsuki use his quick reflexes to save her. Even though he was able to save Mu, Akatsuki was furious and demanded an explanation of his actions. On the other hand, Mu, who had never seen such powerful ice magic, warned Akatsuki of the immense mana coming out of Hikami. However, Akatsuki decided to become the greatest Giga-Chad in all of anime, and used a powerful punch to break the giant ice wall into pieces. This astonished Hikami, who then congratulated both of them for passing the entrance exam before walking away. Akatsuki later learned that Hikami purposely hid his powers in front of him, so he vows to discover his capabilities. That night though, when Akatsuki went to sleep, Mu walked into his room. The memories of him killing her father flashed in her head, and she thought about Isekai'd him. However, when she remembered how he protected her the other day at school, she spared his life for the time being. As she was about to leave, Akatsuki grabbed her hand and pulled her into his bed. But before she could scream at him, he tried to develop a plot with her and began taking off her clothes. It turns out Akatsuki was sleep-talking to her, but Mu was revolted by the idea of being close to him. Even though she tried explaining that they are siblings, he thought she's lying and hugs her from behind, and the simp climaxes.
Stop it. Get some help.
The next morning as they enter the classroom, everyone who saw Mu gets interested in her due to her giant plots. Soon after, a girl named Izumi walks in the room and introduces herself as their classmate. She had heard rumors of Mu using dual spells to defeat the instructor and wanted to see her powers. But before she could warn them, a demoted student of Class A, Onizuka, walks in demanding Akatsuki to get off his seat. The argument soon turned into a heated debate, leading Akatsuki to easily defeat Onizuka by throwing him out of the classroom. Within minutes, the disciplinary committee of Babel arrived at the scene and told Akatsuki to report to the student council office right away. Later, when he entered the council room, Hikami along with the 3 other members of the student council walked in. Akatsuki suddenly lunged forward while the members of the student council tried to stop him. However, he easily dodged all of their spells before coming face to face with Hikami. The vice president of the student council, Haruka, warned Akatsuki not to hold back if he continued to advance towards Hikami. It turned out, Akatsuki had had enough of these games and was eager to see Hikami's full potential. Eventually, he asked him to finish what they had started earlier that day in the training hall, but learned that the student council had called him for picking a fight with a senior student, and because of his actions, he was now on the watch list of the disciplinary committee. Later, on his way back to class, Akatsuki met with the class president Kuzuha, who told him not to escalate the situation with the student council as they were very strong. After some time while practicing in the training hall, Akatsuki was furiously attacked by Haruka. It turned out that earlier that day, he had done some Steven Seagal move and got her undies while confronting Hikami. His actions made her furious, and she wasn't in the mood to hear any excuses. She quickly summoned her twin swords before lunging towards him for an attack. He concluded that she had super agility and accurate movements but was no match for him, and he easily dodged her with quick reflexes. However, this time he managed to steal her other undies, leaving Haruka feeling embarrassed in front of everyone. You know what? Fuck it. It's my fault for expecting anything better from him. Anyway, when she told the king of perverts to apologize, Akatsuki responded by saying her worthless body wasn't even worth an apology, and she leaves with a promise to one day teach him a lesson. When their training began, Mu seemed unable to fit in her training uniform due to her massive cannons, but the girls told her to shake it off, and even though a bit embarrassed, Mu finished her training. The next day, while standing in the food queue, Onizuka tried to bully a student named Tanaka, but got stopped by Akatsuki, which further increased their rivalry. After a while, Haruka meets with Kyuzuha, who questions her managing skills as she wasn't able to stop Akatsuki from doing whatever he wanted. Eventually, she was given a task to report everything about him every morning, and if she happened to miss a day, then she would be sent back to elementary school. This left her confused, and later while returning to the classroom, Kyuzuha encountered Akatsuki, who learned about the task given to her and decided to help her. After some time, Miu and Izumi spotted the duo entering a cafe for couples and decided to follow them. They got into a room next to theirs and tried to overhear their conversation. Meanwhile, Akatsuki hugged Kyuzuha, telling her that she needs to smile more often and she can ask anything that she wanted to write in the report. As they were about to leave, they caught Miu and Izumi, who were trying to listen to their conversation. Instead of apologizing, the girls questioned Kyuzuha if Akatsuki tried to develop a plot with her, and even though she denied such allegations, the girls warned Akatsuki not to get antsy in his pansy, before beating the crap out of him.
Emotional, damn it!
On the other side, Hikami along with Haruka and the rest of the student council had a meeting in which he assured them that he will personally handle Akatsuki. The next day, students were given an armband capable of creating the most suitable weapon based on the wearer's skills and mana. Miu gave it a try and was able to create a spear, but on the other hand, Akatsuki was having some issues and wasn't able to create any weapon. Soon after, the instructor told the students to choose between forming a party or fighting solo. Akatsuki insisted the girls let him join their party, but they refused, saying that they still don't trust his ugly ass, and that he should accept the fact that he's a sore loser.
It's an evil world we live in.
With no other options, Akatsuki challenged Onizuka for a solo fight, who reluctantly agreed. Their training began, and the first monster the girls would be facing is a giant cockatrice that could turn anyone into a statue. It turned out most of the students weren't happy fighting that thing, as they had already defeated it multiple times with an established strategy of running around while avoiding its feather attacks. Meanwhile, Akatsuki and Onizuka got ready to face each other. However, Onizuka showed his true colors and attacked Akatsuki before the match even started. He thought he had won the duel, when all of a sudden Akatsuki broke the spell and jumped towards him for a counterattack. Onizuka tried to stop him using a protection barrier, which Akatsuki easily incapacitated with his giant sword before attacking him and winning the duel. He then put his armband in his hand and tried to create a weapon but failed once again. Suddenly, he heard Miu and the girls having difficulties fighting the cockatrice. The monster had turned the other students into stones and was now charging towards the girls. Haruka tried to buy some time and used an earth spell to summon rocks, but the giant bird easily broke every obstacle in its way and kept advancing towards them. Just when it was about to attack Haruka, Miu used her protection barrier. This gave Izumi enough time to summon a water spell and throw the cockatrice away. However, the monster easily got up, so the three girls combined their strengths and used all of their magic to trap it. Their spell wasn't powerful enough, and the monster began absorbing their magic, becoming more powerful as it grew larger. It then flew to the sky and attacked the girls with its petrified quills, resulting in Haruka and Izumi turning into stones. Miu gathered her remaining strength and tried to fight the giant bird, which proved to be much stronger for her. Just when she was about to give up, Akatsuki arrived, saving her by throwing the giant bird with a single punch. He then used multiple armbands to summon a big black sword and was about to issue the ultimate attack. The bird monster launched its petrified quills towards Akatsuki, who was able to counter most of them but got one of his arms turned to stone. He continued attacking the giant bird and eventually stabbed its neck, killing the monster. Afterward, all the students turned back to normal, and Miu was relieved to see Haruka and Izumi alive. A thorough investigation of the incident was conducted, in which the student council checked the system logs. They learned that Onizuka was the last person to visit the cockatrice system stats, thus he's the one who tampered with its stats data using a master key. However, Akatsuki confronts Tanaka, who is returning to place the stolen master key. At first, Tanaka freaked out and denied anything to do with the incident, but after some time confessed that he used a master key to modify cockatrice's program after Onizuka left. Just then, he jumped off and landed a powerful kick to Akatsuki. He quickly summoned his big black sword and got ready for defense. However, Tanaka became Flash for a second, making it difficult for Akatsuki to see his attacks. He tried to think of a plan of attack but failed miserably as Tanaka continued his assault. Eventually, Akatsuki passes out and falls to the ground. As Tanaka walks towards him to land a final blow, Akatsuki suddenly summons his sword and launches a surprise attack. Due to his super speed, Tanaka narrowly dodges the attack but is stunned by Akatsuki's strength and summoning speed. After realizing that he can't defeat Akatsuki, Tanaka amplifies his magical capacity and casts a powerful spell to destroy the whole school along with the students. He reveals that the school is preparing the students to be deployed to battlefields all around the world, and his mission was to stop that. However, at the last moment Hikami walked in, and with just the power of his words frees the ugly moron on his spot. When it was all over, the girls were helping the students who got injured due to Tanaka's spell. Akatsuki also arrives there along with the bandages, but senses that something is off with Miu. As she was shouting at him for being late, Miu passed out in his arms due to overwork and stress. The next day when she wakes up, Miu finds her cannons have gotten even bigger than before, and she desperately needs some new clothes. After some time while having breakfast, Akatsuki saw the news of Cocoon members arriving in Japan. This really pisses him off, and his facial expression changes, which Miu also notices. Later that day, she curiously asked Kuzuha about the Cocoon, and learns that they serve as the top leaders of Babel. Cocoon is made up of powerful individuals, each one representing their countries. Their main objective is to prevent students with special abilities from being misused so they can intervene in regional conflicts with armies of super soldiers. Meanwhile, on the rooftop, Akatsuki encountered Kaido, a perpetual outcast student of Class A. He walked towards him for a handshake but decided to punch his ugly face, which Akatsuki blocked easily. So he tried to throw some kicks at him, which he also blocked, showing that he never skips leg day. Before long, Akatsuki managed to throw Kaido down and was ready to punch the shit out of him. Realizing that he's about to get messed up, Kaido turned pussy, saying that he just wanted to shake hands and had no intention of hurting him. I don't understand why, but Akatsuki accepted his words, and the two finally shook hands. After which, Kaido told Akatsuki to meet him next Monday as he would like to introduce him to someone. That evening, after buying some undies from Miu, the girls were enjoying dinner. When Izumi asked Akatsuki about his plans for the upcoming ranking matches, he told her that he doesn't even care, as he doesn't remember anything regarding the ranking matches. Miu, who got furious due to his carelessness, began explaining to him about the ranking matches, which come after a written exam. To enter a ranking match, the students must form a team containing 4 members, and since Izumi, Miu, and Kuzuha were present at that moment, she asked Akatsuki to join them, even though he remembered the beating he got previously. After thinking for a while, Akatsuki hesitantly agreed to join their party. The day of the written exam arrived, and even though the girls were nervous as hell, Akatsuki was already sleeping carelessly. When the exam time ended and the teacher began collecting the papers, he was shocked to realize that Akatsuki got all the answers right. Later, while getting out of the examination hall, they encountered Kaido, who was there to take Akatsuki along with him. After that, the duo arrived at an empty workshop where they met a mechanic who knew Akatsuki's father. He showed them the bike that contained more than 16 million horsepower.
What? What the fuck?
Yep, you heard it right, and since this is anime, nobody gives a damn about real-world physics. Anyways, Akatsuki tried to ride it but got thrown away by a strong electric discharge. The mechanic explained that the bike chooses its rider, and so far many have tried but only his father was able to ride it. He warned Akatsuki to back away, but he took this as a challenge and began summoning all of his powers. Somewhere in the distance, Haruka spotted Akatsuki riding a weird motorcycle that was breaking the sound barrier. She decided to get a closer look, and by this time, Akatsuki had returned after successful testing. Haruka wanted to confiscate the motorcycle for further analysis, and even though after repeated warnings from the mechanic and Akatsuki, she still touched the motorcycle. This resulted in her getting thrown away and her uniform ripping apart. Akatsuki, being the man of culture, gave her his coat while promising to let her analyze the motorcycle later. Just then, Haruka received a call from Hikami telling her about a terror attack in a hotel. The terrorists claimed to be members of the Crimson Twilight, a terrorist group composed of people with superhuman abilities like the students of Babel. They had taken over some 50 hostages and were demanding the release of 4 of their members that they had caught earlier that morning. However, Hikami was certain that they were nothing but normal terrorists and were using the Crimson Twilight's name to gain fame. Soon after, Haruka along with the student council arrived there, and after securing the roof, they got down to rescue the hostages. When they came across a room filled with hostages, Minami cast a spell to raise a barrier between the terrorists and the hostages. This gave the student council an opportunity to attack and save the hostages. However, their success was short-lived as the remaining terrorists managed to capture a little girl and demand an escape route using a helicopter. However, the negotiation failed when Akatsuki suddenly arrived there and landed a powerful blow. He managed to free the girl from the terrorist, but before things got nasty, Haruka and the rest of the student council easily defeated the remaining terrorists and secured everything. Later that night, Haruka came to return Akatsuki's coat and left without saying a word. On the other side, in an alternate universe, enemies of the Dark Lord were hunting Miu. They soon learned that she had left their world and now resides on Earth. Even though the Dark Lord was gone, his daughter was still a threat to them. If they let her leave, one day she could return and raise her father's dark army. The possible fear of a dark future made them send a hunting party after her. After some time, as a reward for saving the hostages and a little girl, Akatsuki and the girls, along with the student council, were given a vacation at a beach. There was the sun, the sand, and as you guessed it, lots of plots.
We must stay focused, brothers. We must stay focused.
After having some fun at the beach, when they were returning, Akatsuki and the girls encountered Kaido, who was working as an event staff. He showed them the event flyer with a big winning prize and insisted on participating in it. Since they had nothing to lose, and besides, the girls were getting bored, they ended up participating. As the event began, all the participants were given a number, and when a machine selected a random number, it turned out to be Akatsuki's.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Now, according to the event's rules, he had to keep running and remain in his swimsuit for an hour. Meanwhile, the other participants would be chasing after him, trying to get his swimsuit, and after an hour, whoever had Akatsuki's swimsuit would be declared the winner. As soon as he heard those rules, Akatsuki jumped off and started running away. He tried to hide in a mountain nearby but got discovered by 2 girls who attempted but failed to get his swimsuit. Instead, Akatsuki took off their swimsuits before running away once again. The remaining participants formed a group and surrounded him, but Akatsuki was just going on a rampage and removed all of their undies. You know, normal stuff. By this time, only Miu and the girls were the only participants remaining, so they tried to come up with a plan. However, they were soon discovered by Akatsuki, so Izumi and Kyuzuha attacked him with their spells while making Miu and Kyuzuha run away. He began running on water and dodged all of their attacks, and just when he was about to get Izumi's swimsuit, Akatsuki fell right into a trap previously set by Kyuzuha. But before the girls could celebrate their victory, he burst out before removing Izumi's swimsuit. After which, he went after Kyuzuha but got stopped by Kaido, who warned him of her wearing a single swimsuit. And if he removes it, then you guessed it.
FBI, open up!
Meanwhile, Haruka hid in a women's shower room but Akatsuki was able to find her and took off her swimsuit. Miu, who was hiding in the water, thought that she's safe there. However, Akatsuki arrived there sensing her energy, but before things could get even more wild, the event was over. Both Akatsuki and Miu were disqualified for being underwater, which was off limits. Back in the parallel world, under Lord Barum's command, a hunting party arrived at the otherworldly gate from where Akatsuki passed through. There, they met Phil, who was also from Earth but the exact opposite of Akatsuki. So, at the very least, Lord Barum planned to send him after Miu. But before he could do that, Queen Listy's Knight challenged Phil to test his capabilities. As he prepared for an attack, Phil with his immense mana blew everyone away. He managed to increase his skills so much that no one was able to stand against him. After demonstrating his strength, sure enough, Phil entered the gate to hunt Akatsuki and Miu. The next day, all the students, including Kaido, were gathered for the ranking matches. Akatsuki learned that the members of the student council would also be participating, so he thought of challenging Hikami. Soon after, the student council also arrived there, and Hikami told Akatsuki of not participate in the ranking matches due to an upcoming summit meeting with Cocoon. However, he promised to face him at the end of the ranking matches if the meeting ended on schedule. After some time, the ranking matches began, which would last for 48 hours. During this time, the participants were allowed to rest, but others could attack them. If a lower-ranking participant defeats a higher-ranking participant, their rank would increase multiple times. Furthermore, the participants were given a special uniform that would transform into armor based on their individual personalities. Afterward, their uniforms began to adapt, and so far, everyone was happy with their combat gear, except Miu, whose armor is too good for every man of culture.
What do you mean by that?
As the match begins, Akatsuki and the girls begin eliminating one team after another, so some of the teams come up with an ingenious plan. They hide behind the bushes for a surprise attack, but Akatsuki is able to sense them with his sensing spell and takes them out effortlessly with his big black sword. Eventually, Akatsuki's team manages to eliminate 14 teams, catching the attention of the examiners who were keeping an eye on the team's performances. As night falls, Akatsuki and the girls set up a fire and plan on resting. However, Miu is concerned that other teams could spot them due to the fire, but Akatsuki assures her that after today's performance, there would be hardly anyone crazy enough to go against them. Suddenly, the members of the student council break Kyuzuha's wind barrier, and Haruka challenges Akatsuki. The girls think it's a dumb idea and warn him not to fight her alone, but he assures them that he's going to kick Haruka's ugly ass. They arrive on a hilltop, and Yusaki creates a barrier so that no one could interfere with their fight. Akatsuki quickly summons his big black sword and waits for Haruka to make a move. She teleports behind him and begins attacking with her twin swords, but he dodges all of the attacks before landing his own energy blast that sends Haruka flying away. With that, he has defeated Haruka without her even realizing it. Embarrassed and frustrated to see their vice president being upstaged by a normal student, Minami and Yusaki attack Akatsuki with their spells. However, he was already prepared for them and used an anti-magic barrier to counter their spells. After realizing that their direct magic attacks won't affect him, they summoned their weapons and began infusing them with magic. Despite facing a 3-on-1 situation, Akatsuki took this as an opportunity and used a powerful spell to stop the student council right in their tracks, after which he launched another devastating attack which somehow got deflected.
You don't find that suspicious?
He noticed Kaido on a nearby tree who came to warn them about the disappearance of a special field covering Babel. With the field now gone, all the students were vulnerable, and before long, Akatsuki heard a loud bang coming from where the girls were waiting, so he rushed towards them. On the other side, Phil had managed to track down Miu along with the girls in the forest. By the time Akatsuki reached there, he found Izumi and Kyuzuha badly injured with no sign of Miu. The girls told him of Phil attacking them out of nowhere, and Miu, while trying to save them, lured him away into the forest. After some time, Phil ended up tracking Miu down, so she attacked him. However, her attack wasn't strong enough to cause any damage, so she began running away once again. By now, the student council had also arrived, and they split into 2 groups in order to save the students and Miu. Meanwhile, in the forest, Phil came across Onizuka while chasing Miu. Even though he's a piece of shit and a bully, he still has some balls to confront Phil. Without hesitation, Onizuka launched an attack on Phil, who emerged from it completely unfazed. Afterward, he attacked Onizuka, who immediately created copies of himself to distract Phil. Instead of fleeing, he began attacking him from multiple sides. As one might expect, due to their difference in power levels, Onizuka stood no chance against Phil. His attacks had little to no effect on him, so Phil began lecturing him on how bad he is before throwing him away with a single move. This made him pass out, and when he regained consciousness, Onizuka found Akatsuki healing him. However, he stopped when he noticed Kaido tailing him, so he told him to take care of Onizuka while he went after Phil. By this time, the student council had returned to the base camp and announced the suspension of all the matches, instructing the students to report back to campus immediately. Miu, who had been running away for some time, thought she had lost Phil and stopped to catch her breath. But before she could find a moment of relief, Phil found her once again. He explained his intentions to her, and with nowhere to run, Miu took a stand. She used her staff to launch a powerful wind attack, which he dodged easily before punching her in the gut. Afterward, he got on top of Miu and tried to develop a plot with her. Not surprisingly, as she began to cry, an infuriated Akatsuki arrived. Seeking a way to settle the argument, the duo summoned their swords and began running toward each other. Their swords clashed, and neither of them seemed to budge as both were equally matched. As one might expect, it didn't take long for Akatsuki to realize that Phil has killed everyone at the base camp, so he vows to kick his ass. By combining magic with his sword, Phil was able to throw Akatsuki back. However, he refused to give up and attacked him once again. This time using his energy manipulation technique that caused Phil some damage and made him fall back. Feeling insulted by Akatsuki, Phil used dark magic and shot several energy blasts towards him. But worry not, Akatsuki used his very own energy blast to counter Phil's attack, which is then followed by a huge energy bomb right up his face. Phil tried to stop it with a magical barrier but was hit by it anyway. Just when Akatsuki thought he'd won, Phil got up, and it seems he hadn't lost any mana. Akatsuki believed him to be a high-tier opponent, but conversely had no fear of him. So Phil teleported back to Miu and threatened to kill her, and to save her, Akatsuki dropped his sword and removed all the armbands. With no ability to summon any more weapons, Phil attacked Akatsuki but was stopped by his inner energy, so he began punching him. Miu took this as an opportunity to run away, and by the time Akatsuki got to her, she had jumped off a cliff. But to her surprise, he saved her and brought her out of the water. He then mentioned how her father fought everyone to create a world where she could be safe, and her death wouldn't resolve anything. Apparently, Miu comes back to her senses, and the two of them start heading towards the base camp. However, they were stopped dead in their tracks when they found Phil standing in front of them. It also comes as a surprise for Akatsuki, who thought his attacks should have screwed up Phil's energy flow. Phil begins to laugh hysterically and on a little side note, tells Akatsuki that he was hiding his true power all along.
I knew it!
With that, he begins charging up immense mana, and the whole surroundings turn crimson red. Meanwhile, the student council tries contacting Hikami when all of a sudden they hear a loud bang. By the time they get out, everyone is petrified to see a living, breathing dragon. Somehow, Phil has infused himself with Zahak, the dragon of sorrow from Isekai'd, and brought him to Earth through his body. Even though a bit astonished, Akatsuki was prepared to face Zahak. However, Miu tried to stop him as fighting Zahak in his current state would be suicide. She comes up with a plan to work as a decoy while Akatsuki gets fully healed. Nonetheless, it would have been a good idea, but he told Miu not to push herself too hard. She summoned multiple wind spells, but the dragon formed an impenetrable barrier around itself, making it impossible for Miu's magic to cause any damage. Frustrated, she summoned her staff and tried attacking it physically, but got thrown away with a single move. The dragon was about to crush her, but luckily Haruka, along with the student council, managed to save her. Since magical attacks won't work on Zahak, they summoned their weapons and attacked it with everything they had. By this time, Kyuzuha and Izumi also joined them. The dragon was stunned by Izumi's rapid attacks, which drew out hydrogen from the atmosphere to create huge explosions. Zahak, now more furious than before, used a powerful magical blast to kill Haruka, but Izumi saved her at the last moment. To end this quickly, Yusaki attacked Zahak with his sword, giving Miu enough time to use her father's special technique. She began gathering immense energy before attacking the dragon's neck. However, it was all just an illusion created by Zahak, and the dragon used a powerful blast to knock everyone out except Miu. The dragon told her to show him her true strength as she's the daughter of the Dark Lord. Frustrated, she summoned her staff but gave up, realizing that she's almost run out of magical energy. Zahak then captured her in its tentacle and began to open a portal back to Isekai'd, when all of a sudden Akatsuki arrived there. The dragon tried to kill him with a surprise attack but failed to do so. Meanwhile, Akatsuki went full berserk and started attacking Zahak. He realized that his sword began to dissolve due to the dragon's poisonous skin, and he wouldn't be able to continue attacking it. To stop Akatsuki, the dragon summoned multiple spells and began to rain down energy attacks on him, causing a huge explosion. When the dust settled down, Akatsuki was still standing. However, the dragon's insides began exploding due to Akatsuki's previous attacks. In a last-ditch effort to kill everyone, Zahak began to charge up a special attack called the Dragon's Breath. Meanwhile, Akatsuki's sword turned completely black, and with that, a huge explosion occurred that knocked everyone around. When Miu regained consciousness, she found Akatsuki and Zahak standing, but his sword and armbands had turned into ashes. With no way to summon any weapons, Akatsuki is pretty much a sitting duck, so Miu along with Haruka gave him their armbands. With newfound power and friends alongside, Akatsuki jumped off to face Zahak. The dragon, with all of its remaining strength, shot another dragon's breath right at him, which he stopped by hitting its weak spot. His sword sliced through the powerful attack with ease before finally cutting the dragon in half and killing it instantly.
Emotional damage!
Soon, the news of Akatsuki defeating Zahak reached the members of Cocoon, who took a keen interest in him. They plan to summon and control a being that governs the world's rules, and for that, they have already prepared a project. A few days have passed since then. Akatsuki and his teammates were placed at number 1 in the ranking matches and were promoted to Class A. On the other side, in Anislayer, Queen Listy and Lord Baram received news of Zahak's perishing, which means that Phil is also dead. Since there would be more hunting parties after Phil, Akatsuki decided that he, along with Mu, should return to Anislayer to make a peace treaty between the Dark Clan and the armies of Lord Baram and Queen Listy. However, before leaving, Mu wanted to tell Izumi and Kyuzuha her real identity. After listening to her, the girls decided to accompany them to this parallel world. At the same time, Haruka and Kaido visited Akatsuki's place to deliver a new armband designed especially for him by one of the professors. When they entered the room, they were astonished to see Akatsuki and the girls getting ready to teleport to another world, so they decided to also join them in this new adventure.